For many people, issues like deforestation and environmental catastrophe are still just matters for debate and for future policy making. But here on the Solomon Islands, the debate is already over and the catastrophe has already arrived. At the present rate of logging, the entire old forests of the Solomon Islands will be all but gone within 5 to 7 years, and international and local experts agree it's too late now to stop that happening. With the forests goes 70% of the country's export revenue and the culture and lifestyle of the native population. I'm Taimur Nabili, and on this edition of 101 East, we take a look at the tragedy that's now unfolding on the Solomon Islands. One of the problems of the Solomon's logging industry is, ironically, that there are not enough timber yards in the country. Places like this add value to the wood and generate jobs and local income for the people. But most of the Solomon's wood bypasses the local population entirely. It goes overseas as raw log at a fraction of the price that it would fetch as worked or finished product. Howell Davis now reports on how corrupt local politicians and rapacious foreign businessmen have teamed up to destroy the forests and defraud the population of the Solomon Islands.
It can look like a Pacific paradise, but the Solomon Islands faces a crisis. At risk are its natural beauty, economic future, and political integrity. At the heart of its problems is a logging industry, exploiting the forests at an unsustainable, ruthless rate.
If they are actually doing the same rate and there's nothing done about it, in 10 years' time, I think it's going to be disaster. It's going to be disaster. There'll be a lot of social problems, there'll be a lot of problems. It's going to be a national problem.
The country, two strings of islands in the South Pacific, is chopping down trees at 4 times the sustainable rate. Most of the work is done by foreign companies, destroying whole swathes of forests for export to countries like China and Japan. It's an ecological disaster.
Yes, it affects the village. It contaminates drinking water and destroys valuable trees like coconut trees.
The logging came and spoiled a lot of things. One of them is that it spoils the good land for gardening. When the rain comes, the soil is washed away.
It's made worse by the reliance of many Solomon Islanders on their forests for building materials for their houses, fuel for cooking, even food and medicines. At this small village, an hour's boat ride from the provincial capital on the island of Makira, logging started almost 3 years ago. Many islanders here still live as subsistence farmers, scratching out a living from their small plots or gardens. For some, the arrival of the logging company has meant jobs and access to money.
By working here, I earn the money to buy good things for me. For example, cooking pots and clothing. I also help pay for school fees for my brothers who are in secondary school.
The land and the trees on it are owned by the villagers, but they receive a fraction of what they're worth. The 350 villagers get around $25,000 annually. That's about $1.40 a week. Yet the company says it's extracting around 36,000 cubic meters of wood from here annually. That's worth over $1 million. The money received is a poor return, many say, for the changes logging has brought to the land and the people.
Before we haven't got any dispute, but when the logging comes in, we have lots of disputes against the tribes, families. Those are the problems that we have since the logging.
It's not just the social impacts on isolated villages of logging that's hurt the Solomon Islands so much. The money represented by these logs has gone a long way to corrupting the entire political system, even up to ministerial level. In the capital, Honiara, the logging firms hide behind shell companies and local subsidiaries, obscuring their true origins. It's thought that many of them are Malaysian-owned, and it's alleged that over the last 20 years they've introduced large-scale corruption to the Solomons.
They started corrupting it from the bottom to up to the top. And even landowners were corrupted. Traditional leaders were corrupted. Provincial leaders were corrupted. and politicians at the central government level are also corrupted.
A 2005 audit report on the government's forestry department found that $215,000 was given in unauthorised payments to MPs, ministers and officials, while politicians, not surprisingly, granted $4.26 million of unlawful tax exemptions to logging companies. The then Prime Minister and a group of friends were the recipients of a day out on a dive boat that cost $3,600 for a single day. Some politicians have made attempts to reform the logging industry, but they've run up against the power of the loggers. Two reforming governments in the 1990s were brought down after they cancelled logging licences. Recent political and ethnic turmoil has not helped the islands. Racial riots in 2006 saw much of the capital's commercial heart, Chinatown, burnt down. A new government was voted in last year in the aftermath of those clashes. It claims it will monitor the industry more closely.
Well, it's fair to say that simply because of years of neglect that the government has demonstrated in terms of not closely monitoring the activities in the logging sector. But I think it would also be fair to say that the government is putting in place some sizable change.
Others are not convinced that change is happening. The notional price of logs, the figure by which the government decides how much to tax the logging industry, was meant to rise twice this year. Most experts agree that the government bowed to fierce pressure from timber companies. It cancelled the second increase.
We have not seen any big change, in my view, of the approach. The connection between individual politicians, ministers, and the loggers is still very strong. So they are cronies, and you could say some of the ministers of the government could well be called, or you could say, they're puppets of the loggers.
For the Solomon Islands, time is running out. The sun is setting on hopes that it can rein in a corrupting, environmentally destructive industry. For a few, logging has been highly profitable, but little of the wealth has remained here, and the cost to the islands and the islanders will be heavy for generations to come.
Joining me now to discuss the situation of the logging industry in the Solomon Islands are Gordon Darcy-Lilo, who's the Minister of Environment and Conservation. Dorothy Wickham is the founder of One News, and Morgan Wairiu is with the Environment Concern Action Network. Thank you all for being with us. Morgan, let me begin with you, if I might. It seems to me that the Solomons right now is at the cutting edge of what is a very modern problem. Bad government, bad business leading to a serious impact on the environment. But how serious is that impact?
Well, it's quite serious because our economy as well as our rural livelihood both depend entirely on our resources. And therefore any impact on our resources will have profound impact on the livelihood of the people who are mostly in the villages as well as the economy of the country.
And the claim is that literally within 5 years the hardwood forests of this nation will be gone. Is that fair? Is that correct?
Well, that's correct according to the survey that has been just conducted. And we are losing most of our tropical hardwood.
Mm. Dorothy, it seems also as if the local population is at best indifferent or perhaps just not knowledgeable enough about the situation, but there seems to be no real uprising amongst the people about this.
Well, there's also the economic reality of especially people in the rural area. What is the alternative? I think that's what government and groups like Morgan's can look at. And you can't say to somebody, don't cut your logs, and not give him another alternative to go to if he wants a large sum of money to start something else. And that's usually the argument all the time. They'll say, okay, if I don't cut my logs, then how do I start something I want to do? And that's the economic reality of Solomon Islanders in the rural area.
All right, Gordon, you're a minister with a great deal of clout and responsibility for these issues. Before we discuss the issue of what can be done, let me ask you about the importance that you personally and the government places on this claim that your hardwood forests are now all but dead.
Well, it's a reality that you're facing now, and that is why that we are coming up with certain action plan, to address the situation. Finally, we find that the income flow from the logging industry
diminish.
But
We have to
environmentally,
look at the alternatives.
Environmentally, how much concern does it cause you that the Solomons finds itself now in this, what appears to be an irrevocable situation?
Well, very much. I mean, right now we are beefing up, the efforts in trying to do monitoring in the areas of logging. For instance, we are responding, to requests from landowners and all other, actions group in terms of, monitoring the activities of logging throughout the country. We are trying our best. It's a marked difference from what it used to be before.
Let me just pick up that phrase that you used,
Sure.
We are trying our best, because a lot of people would suggest that that is not the case. Dorothy, do you agree that the government is trying its best?
I think so. Compared to other governments, there's been a couple of steps that have been taken. I know for certain that there are now environmental officers actually visiting the areas that are applying for logging licenses. That wasn't the case before. A lot of people put in their application into forestry. There was nobody actually going down onto the ground to find out and investigate. Yeah.
Morgan, the situation in which we find ourselves, where there is nothing to be done for the hardwood forests of the Solomon Islands, does the suggestion that this particular government now is trying its best give you any hope at all?
Well, they are trying. We can see something coming on the horizon, but I think it's coming a bit too late. This message has been on the board for the last 20 years, and we haven't seen any tangible action taken by the government to address this issue. So trying to do something at the 11th hour will have very little impact.
Gordon.
Well, I mean, the monitoring exercise that we are doing right now is what I've said. There's a marked difference in what we are doing now than what it used to be, some 5 years ago.
How did it get to this point? The history shows that successive governments have allowed this catastrophe to occur without doing anything. How did we arrive at this point?
Well, I mean, it could be that it's a situation that people just basically enjoyed it, and it just happened like that. But I think what is important for us now to see now is that the efforts that has been taken now to ensure that we do proper monitoring of the activity, and making people to be aware and more concerned about the future of their environment, the future environment of their children.
Well, let's pause for a minute there and consider the alternatives. In just a moment, we'll have to take a short break. Join us again after this.